So happy to get everybody on here and listening. Sorry for a little delay. I had some technical difficulties here, but really excited to have the wonderful Karla Lems here from South Dakota to talk to us and tell her about what she's got, or tell us about what she's got going on in South Dakota there. So, welcome to the Root of Patriot. Incredibly happy to have you here. So, I guess tell us about you.
Wow. Well, that's broad. Um, well, obviously, I'm Karla Lems. I'm a representative in District 16 in South Dakota, and that's in the southeast area of the state. If any of you know where Sioux Falls is, I'm south of that. I don't represent Sioux Falls, but I'm south of there, a lot of the agricultural district. And also, I'm the Speaker Pro Tem in South Dakota. I'm the chair of House Commerce and Energy. Also serve on State Affairs. I'm on the Government Operations and Audit Committee. And we have a big subject here in South Dakota, besides probably what we're going to be talking about, the pipeline, but I'm also on the prison task force this summer. So, and okay. I'm also running alongside with John Hanson. He's running for governor, and I'm running for lieutenant governor with him.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we, as you know, you and I have talked before. So we've talked a little bit about property rights. I know we've met before and talked about it. You know, I'm an impacted landowner here. My family is here in Iowa. So I guess tell us a little bit about what you guys had going on in South Dakota with that. I know you guys had a lot more action, if you will, over that. So I guess kind of tell us how that worked out for you and what happened, I guess.
Sure. Well, in a nutshell, this started in South Dakota for me about 4 years ago, and that was before I was a state representative. And I didn't get into running for office because of that issue, but it kind of became my issue. I had both pipelines. We had Navigator Heartland Greenway and Summit Carbon Solutions coming through our family property in South Dakota. So I was affected that way personally. But I also had a lot of the people in my district affected, as well as then obviously in the state. And so I got elected for office about the same time I was getting these letters from Summit and Navigator. And I had a guy come up to me, affected landowner up from the northern part of the state, Mark Lapka, who now is a senator, and we'll get to that. But he came up and said, "Hey, would you carry a bill for this, and basically no eminent domain for these projects?" And so, all of these things were ramping up just like they were in Iowa. We had the RPUC was involved, as I know you guys had the IUC down there, so they had to get a permit. We had counties that were getting involved with this, trying to get ordinances and things passed because this was a brand new thing we've never had in the state before. And the questions started to be asked, will you try to use eminent domain for these projects? And the answer was, well, if we need to, we will. And so that's where people really started to dig in their heels, because we aren't against pipelines. We aren't against ethanol. We're not against those things. But this was not a public use. And we felt that this domino fell, that we were going to see a host of other things happen. So really, on my part, I've been involved for the past 3 years with different pieces of legislation. I've carried 2 of those bills, and the last one that you probably heard about in Iowa was HB 1052, which we actually finally got across the finish line. And again, that's basically, it just says there will be no eminent domain for a CO2 pipeline in the state of South Dakota. It doesn't matter if it's a public use. It doesn't matter if it's a common carrier carrying a commodity or anything else. It's just, we're not going to have eminent domain because we've had it up to here with some of these companies trying to jam this down our throat. And so we did get that done. And obviously we did have over 160 landowners here condemned. And I know you had even more than that in Iowa.
Yep.
And so, we had a referred law too that was passed in 2024. We had Senate Bill 201, which was basically, I called it the Pipeline Bill of Rights. The proponents called it the Landowner Bill of Rights, and it really was not. Yep. And that's what really raised awareness, I think, throughout the state on this issue, because we have something in South Dakota called referred law. And so we referred that law back to the people, and we were able to get 65 out of the 66 counties that voted our way on that, repealing that law. And then we replaced that with HB 1052.
Oh,
And
wow.
got a lot of new legislators because of that as well.
Well, that's something that we've talked about here quite a bit. You know, after you guys had gone through that RL, was it RL 201?
One.
You know, there's a big swing in your state legislator. What was it, 14 or 16 legislator changes in there? Um,
Yes.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but I knew it. I mean, it was a significant swing, and a lot of it had to do with, you know, people want their property rights, much like, you know, what we were fighting here in Iowa. You guys were working on the same thing. Um, you know, and so it's incredible to see the kind of the transformation of property rights in South Dakota there, because we haven't seen that everywhere. When you look at North Dakota and Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota, you know, most of us haven't, you know, we haven't gotten to that same level where we've defended property rights as vehemently as you guys did in South Dakota. I know Summit has sued, what was it, over 250 landowners through the course of this. Several different legislative bodies or individuals in it. I believe even was it in South Dakota there they filed a suit against one of your guys' PUC members, or was that North Dakota? I can't remember exactly
That was
which, but
South Dakota. Yes.
was it?
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
and that's something, you know, we see that, you know, when you talk about, you know, you had it up to here. I mean, that's kind of where everybody was at, and it's because of stuff like that that people see. So you help champion and help push through a lot of the transformation that was needed there. What was kind of some of the hurdles you faced there in getting that done, or did you have a whole lot, or was there a lot of bipartisan support in trying to get that accomplished?
There was. It was a nonpartisan issue because everybody recognizes property rights and when their rights are being infringed upon. And so we did have bipartisan support. We had a lot of different groups working on it. You will hear some people say, oh, we got this done because of, you know, one or two people. And that's really not true. It took a whole host of people working in conjunction with each other. That's what we really had to do in South Dakota. And I cannot take credit for it. I was a part of it, but I certainly did not spearhead it on my own. But we had to build a network. And so we had to build a network throughout the state of South Dakota, not only along the pipeline route, but when we got to the referred law, we had to have the whole state know what was going on. And so it was a lot of educating, a lot of, I mean, we had townships that got involved, just like you guys,
Yeah,
you know, worked on in Iowa. And
yeah,
I mean, I've even traveled to other states talking about this. Nebraska, for instance, and we had people from North Dakota that would come down, and and that's the other thing. It was bigger than just one state. I mean, this was going to affect 5 different states with each pipeline, and
yeah,
so that's where, you know, there was a lot to overcome, because how many people really know what a CO2 pipeline was? Not a lot of
yeah,
people knew, and there's so many different areas that were, you know, we not only had property rights, we had safety concerns, we had foreign ownership, we had
yeah,
insurance and liability, and so all of these things together. And so we did a lot of traveling across the state. Many different legislators would go, as well as affected landowners, informing people of what was going on, of what this was. And again, we were afraid of the domino effect of what would happen, especially with eminent domain, if this thing was rolled through. Because what do we have right behind it? We have wind and solar. And you had people
yeah,
like Jamie Dimon that was talking about, hey, we need to use eminent domain for wind and solar. And
yeah,
so we just knew that this was coming. There's a lot of big money behind it. And,
yeah,
you know, now we're hearing about enhanced oil recovery and things like that, that we always knew was probably part of it. But of course, they didn't say that that's what it was for. It was for climate change, which
yeah,
again is the Green New Scam. Because if we're just going to take plant food and bury it in the ground and say we're going to change the temperature with that, I even went to one of the ethanol companies, one of their stockholder meetings, and a farmer asked about that, and he said, "Hey, what's going to happen if if we're burying CO2? How's that going to affect my crops?" And they said, "Well, it really probably isn't going to do much, but this is a business opportunity," and that is exactly what it was. And so they did actually speak the truth there. But again, they're just saying, you know, we're gonna do it because there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and we need your land, which is the rainbow, and we're going to take the pot of gold, which is your money.
yeah. Well,
So
and it's crazy. I mean, that's one of the I recently I don't know if you've read the Iowa Capitol Dispatch. There's the state and local legislators and political leaders that have sent a letter seeking to either eliminate or change the 45Q tax credit, one of the tax credits that makes these possible. And I've done a little bit of research on it. And one of the most interesting things and why I ended up signing on it, because I'm a county supervisor here, so I had signed on to that. And one of the reasons when I looked at that and I looked at 45Q, I'm all for, how do we help get businesses going? Whatever it is, how can we help do that? We shouldn't be picking and choosing winners. But when you look at historically with 45Q, one of the things that really drove me to say, hey, we need some change out of that was so 45Q started back in 2008 under President Bush. Between 2010 and 2019, that's where some of the statistics I was looking at. The Treasury had found that there was roughly $1 billion spent for that tax credit, and of that, 900 plus million of it they couldn't even track to had following the rules or done what they're supposed to or reported the things they were supposed to. When I look at things like that, it's like, well, you're not asking for a jump start out of that. You're asking for a handout, and
right,
you don't want to have to follow the rules, and we should just have to pay for it. And I believe at the end, basically, the federal government lost something like a little over $500 million or something out of it. I think they reclaimed part of it, but still, I look at $37 trillion in debt, and we want to give money to this,
right,
and I see no benefit to it. I've compared it to if we're going to call Carbon a bad employee, and you should always if you're telling me Carbon is the bad employee, then we should get rid of it. What
yes,
you're advocating for is putting it in the basement.
right,
Let's not do away with it. Let's just hide it somewhere so that the rest of the general public doesn't see this bad employee anymore.
right. Yep.
So
And yeah, and you're right. And that's the thing is this is the green new scam. This is only going to benefit a few, putting my tax dollars and yours in their pocket. And
mhm.
yeah, you can say, oh, that now they're talking about Harold Hamm's talking about enhanced oil recovery or whatever, and they're going to need this to fight against all these climate policies and all of this. And it's like, well, but again, if we believe in free market capitalism, they should be able to do that without my tax dollars and yours. And I'm for energy independence all day long. But
Yep.
those oil companies can pay for it, and then pass it on to the consumer. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And Trump, he has just come out on Truth Social, and he put on there. He said, "I hate the green tax credits," and I agree with him all day long. But we cannot be picking winners and losers even within that. So we've got wind and
Yeah.
solar, but we also have the CO2 pipelines. And again, they are proposing a vast number of these. So we here in South Dakota, there was a few of us that went out to Washington D.C. about 2 weeks ago, and we went out to talk to them about the reconciliation bill. And we were very concerned. We brought our own white paper out there that we wrote.
Mm.
And so we presented that to them, which isn't probably too far off of what you signed. And but we heard from a host of them out there that they said, yeah, actually, we've heard about 1052 out here in Washington, and that's exactly why they wanted to try to put this federal preemption into the on the federal level into the reconciliation bill. And
Yeah.
thank goodness people like Chip Roy fought hard to get that back out before it passed over to the Senate. And our two senators here, Senator Thune and Senator Rounds, told us there's not really appetite to put that back in. But another thing that we heard from one of the senators was they said, well, there's a lot of states that want this, and they named Nebraska and North Dakota, and they said, and Iowa especially wants it. And the question was posed to him. They said, so is it the delegation in Iowa that wants this, or is it the people? And the answer was the delegation wants it
Yep.
because the lobbyists want it and the companies want it. But
Yep.
what about the people? What about the Constitution? What about our private property rights? That should be held up higher than any lobbyist, than any big oil or whoever. We have to enshrine that first and get that right before we go on and do do these other things. But again, free market capitalism should rule the day.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And to your point, I mean, that's where when you look at the people, I mean, I've got neighbors that have signed on, and I've never begrudged anybody that's signed onto it. Everybody does it for their own reasons. Some people, hey, I need the money and I don't care, and it's not my business to be upset with why you do or don't do something. But a vast majority of the people, even that have signed on that I have talked to, some are neighbors, some are friends. I've got one individual that farms my ground with me that signed on, and he's the first one to tell me, I don't, I think it's dumb. I'm glad I got paid. I hope it doesn't work out and
Mm-hmm.
it fails. Um, but he goes, I also don't agree that they should be allowed to use eminent domain. He
Mm-hmm.
said, there's just no good use for this.
Right.
And that's where they may have signed people up, but the Des Moines Register reported something like 80% of Iowans
Yeah.
oppose this. And most people, when you talk to them, they don't, most of what I've seen is they don't fully understand what it is,
Mm-hmm.
or what's behind it, or what, where the movers and shakers, to your point, the investors, when you look at some of the investors that gotten into that, where this money is coming from, because I don't know that it's all coming from where they're saying it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And there's money coming from parts of the world that shouldn't be investing their money in
Right.
this. And that's the thing. When I see that, the people of Iowa don't want this. When we look at what happened in the last couple of weeks or last week of our legislators there, we had our 12 senators that stood up and said, hey, we don't want this, and we need to pass something. And some of the conversations that I've had with people is Tony Bisignano got up there, a Democrat. I can't remember where he's from. And basically he just said, hey, you guys are calling it a crap bill, and that's fine, but your constituents have been calling for 4 years for change to happen out of this, and you gave them nothing. So we need to give them something. Yeah, and it got a lot of bipartisan support here. And when you look at the way Iowans are, the Iowans, the people that are supposed to be represented aren't getting that.
Right.
And it becomes more and more apparent all the time, and that's just what's frustrating. So back, I guess, in South Dakota, so you guys had, so you stopped the RL21.
Mm-hmm.
You guys succeeded in vast majority. So the way your counties looked with that is the way the current phase 2 maps look for Iowa. I don't know if you've looked at any lately, but it's a lot of eminent. I mean, talking
Yes.
90 to 95% of eminent domain they're going to have to use. So that can only go over well.
Yeah.
So what prompted you then to jump into the lieutenant governor race out of this then?
Well, John Hanson and myself, he's the Speaker of the House right now. I'm the Speaker pro tem. And we just saw such a move, not only with property rights in South Dakota, but we had Amendment G, which was going to enshrine abortion up to life into our South Dakota Constitution. We had just a host of things on our ballot last time, and a lot of concerning things. He really championed the life issue here, but he was really with us on the property rights issue as well. And just, when I got to Pierre, I started to see things that really were concerning to me. I saw how the lobbyists really ruled the day, along with the second floor, we call it. And so it was concerning to me, not that they had a voice, but that their voice seemed to be more revered than the voice of the people. And when the people would come in to testify, there was almost a disdain, that turning your nose up at them, not with everyone, but with some. And it was enough of them that I was very concerned that our government was no longer of the people, by the
Yeah.
people, for the people. And so this was a wake up call. And this property rights issue, what it did was it got people paying attention once again. And so the people started paying attention to this, and then they started to see other things that were concerning to them. A lot of governor controlled, special interests
Mm.
things that only the governor had control over. And I'm not necessarily blaming one governor in particular, but I'm just saying it just seems like there was an unfair playing field, if you will, between the legislative branch and the governor and obviously the courts as well. But
Yeah.
it's like we need to bring balance back to that. And I think the only way to really do that is to get somebody in the governor's office that recognizes that, and to pull some of that stuff back
Yeah.
and to have more eyes on things and more voices. And so that's where Governor or John Hanson decided he was going to run. And he said, I think it just makes sense that you would run with me. We both kind of had our own networks that we had built up throughout the state. And so that's what we decided to do. We see eye to eye on almost everything, maybe not 100%, but very closely, as you
Yep.
know, um, hardly any two people ever do. But we're very much aligned with conservative values, conservative principles, and wanting the people to once again have a voice in their government. And so that's where we just decided to run, and here we go.
Nice. Yeah, and I was happy. I read Representative Hanson's. He wrote that letter or gave this speech, or whatever it was. I read that after the RL 201 went through or didn't go through, however you put that there. But it was incredible. I having met you and talked to you. I don't know that we could ask for a better pair to go champion that state house there in South Dakota, because I mean, to me, the work I've seen out of you guys, where you guys have stood. I haven't met John personally. I've talked to him a little bit. Met you. I believe I met you here in Iowa, even.
Yes.
Last summer, last fall, something like that. It was fantastic to get to meet you for the first time there. But I see the work you guys are doing, and it's incredible. So, you guys, it's as with any of these, it's always an uphill road to keep doing that. So where can people find out about you? Because your guys are a little bit different than Iowa. So you guys elect the governor and lieutenant governor, correct?
Right.
So where can
Well,
people go to find out about you?
yeah, so actually we just changed that in this last legislative session, that the governor actually gets to pick the lieutenant governor. And a lot of people are criticizing us because they're saying, well, you guys, we neither one of us voted for that. So usually our lieutenant governor is elected at the convention, and but that did change this last session. So John would be able to pick me for his running mate, and then we would, obviously he would be the one on the ballot. So,
Oh, okay.
mhm.
So
Yep.
where can they find out? You guys have Where can they find out about you guys? Because I know
Yeah,
I
they can go on
people
to the
that.
website. I think it's johnhansonforgovernor.com. And boy, I hope I have that right. You might have to Google it. But otherwise, we both have our individual face. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, and we're also on X.
Nice. That's awesome. So, um, it's really exciting to get you on, get to talk to you. I know we'll talk some more at some point again too. Is there anything kind of closing out that you'd like to talk about? Anything that we did talk about with it? Kind of your path forward next, and
Well, one thing I would just like to remind people is the government really is, of the people, by the people, and for the people. And I think that we've had a wake up call here in South Dakota. I think you also have in Iowa. We are having other states contact us as well, saying, hey, can you help us? I just had a representative from Louisiana contact me, and they're dealing with this carbon pipeline down there as well. But the carbon pipeline is just one of many things that are concerning to us as Americans today. And this debt situation, like you mentioned, is just out of control. And if we do not handle it and tighten our belts, our children and grandchildren are probably not going to be living in a free country anymore.
yep.
And so it's very important. And I want people to know that you can make a difference, but you have to get involved at whatever level that is for you. I just ask for people to get involved in their local government, whether it's your library board or your school board or your township, or just even attending a public meeting Just you sitting in the seat makes a difference because they know that somebody is watching them. I would also just like to remind people to contact your senators on the federal level, and if at all possible, ask them that you want the 45Q tax credit rescinded out of the Senate bill before they vote on it. And and you guys in Iowa have a very loud voice because your delegation is very much pushing this. And I will leave you with this. This is what George Washington said. He said, freedom and property rights are inseparable. You cannot have one without the other. And that is so true, because our property is not just the land. It is the clothes on your back, the money in your bank account. And so it's all of those things. And if we don't have the right to own property, then we are no longer a free nation.
Yeah, no, and that is 100% spot on. I love to quote. I have Justice Patterson's quote I keep saved. I don't have it memorized, but it runs along that same lines about the absolute importance of property rights. So I thank you so much for being a champion for property rights, for putting your name out there, for doing what's right, looking after your constituents, and by doing so, you don't know this, but you're helping us here in Iowa too, and you're helping those. You talked about representatives from Louisiana. I've had 2 on my show so far. They've got some great reps down there trying to make some change for them. And so a couple amazing guys down there I've been able to talk to. So Karla, thank you so much. I wish you the best in your guys' campaign there, because South Dakota needs people like you, needs people that will stand up for the residents of South Dakota, there for the people of South Dakota, defend their right to life, the right to property, all of our constitutional basis, what our republic is founded on. We need people like you in those offices. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Austin.
Oh, I'm very excited you did. Very glad. So thank you so much. As with everything, everybody, make sure you follow Rooted Patriot on Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. I'm also on X. So please give us a follow. Help share these messages out, because these great candidates like John Hanson and Karla Lems are going to need all of the support they can get to get good constitutional representatives in all of our seats of government. So thank you again for coming on. So great to get to talk to you, and you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You as well.